So in this demo, we're going to go through a quad focused high bar back squat. This is slightly more difficult and slightly more range of motion focused than your standard powerlifting style back squat. The idea of it is to focus a lot more on the quad development and to focus on creating that full range of motion through the joints to maximize muscular tension and get as much out of the muscle as possible by going through that full deep stretch range of motion. So we're leading into the unrack first, is retracting the shoulder blades and then coming under the bar so it rests on that trap shelf on your back. From here, knees out as you go down, keeping your chest and eyes as high as possible. Really focus on pushing those knees out as much as you can at the bottom to open up your hips. Everyone's feet position will be slightly different, but typically we're going to aim to have hip width or just outside of hip width, looking at your toes angled out to close to 45 degrees to allow you to also push your knees out over the toes as wide as you can. As you go down, it might be a case where your feet will shift slightly, and what that is basically is your feet shifting into the natural rhythm that they sit in, and just keep that, and that's where you're going to work with from there. In terms of the squat itself, as you can see, it's nice controlled on the way down into that deep stretch, keeping that chest as high as possible, sitting into that stretch for a split second before coming back up by rising the chest first and following that up. The idea of pushing your chest up as much as possible effectively negates the action of your hips shooting up out of the squat. So if you can focus on that motion as much as possible, it'll stop that from happening and allow the focus to stay more in the quads. The only other two technique points we'll look at is the hips. You can see there's a slight hip tilt upwards to allow for increased tension through the quad. Also in terms of how we're putting our weight through our feet, looking at our pinky toe, big toe and heel to create even ground pressure for that strong push.